Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Tinker, Tenor, Doctor Spy, which is episode 4 of season 6 of Star Trek Voyager. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek as requested by my viewers. This episode was requested by Christopher Ma. So, Tinker, Tenor, Doctor Spy is the episode where the Doctor experiments with a new program that allows him to daydream, where he has daydreams where he's promoted to the emergency command hologram where he can take command if the crew is incapacitated. In his fantasy, he defeats the Borg with a weapon he designed himself called a photonic cannon. In addition, in his fantasies, all the women in the crew pine over him. However, unbeknownst to them, Voyager has entered the space of an alien race that spy on any ships entering their space for the purpose of raiding them, and one of the aliens on board tapped into the Doctor's daydreams and mistakes them for reality and plans an attack on Voyager based on them. However, his intrusion on the Doctor's daydreams causes them to malfunction, where they completely take him over and switch constantly from dream to dream. On Voyager, the crew find out about his fantasies and work to fix him, which they do. However, some of the crew viewed some of his fantasies, which humiliated the Doctor. However, the alien who was spying on the Doctor realizes his mistake, that it was just fantasies, but is afraid to admit his mistake to his superiors, as his entire career would be ruined. So instead, he contacts the Doctor and concocts a plan to fool and thwart the aliens on the condition that the Doctor plays along as being the commander of Voyager. However, things don't go as planned when the aliens change their plans at the last minute, and it looks like they're going to overpower Voyager. So the Doctor improvises and tells Tuvok to activate the photonic cannon, which scares the aliens away. And as a reward, Janeway decides to instate this emergency command hologram subroutine into the Doctor's program. So in my top 10 funniest episodes of Star Trek I named this episode the second funniest Star Trek episode out of all 5 Star Trek series, and I fully stand by that statement. I feel this episode works on so many levels, as it manages to have a good story, a well-constructed plot with interesting characters, while at the same time being funny as hell. I will admit that funny episodes or comedy episodes tend to be my least favorite kinds of Star Trek episodes, as I mainly watch Star Trek for interesting science fiction, great drama, or intense suspense, not so much for laughs. In fact, the most common complaint I get on my videos for episodes I don't like is someone saying that they thought that episode was fun or funny, but personally I don't find that an excuse for a bad plot. But the few episodes that manage to simultaneously tell a good solid story and be funny as hell are a very rare gem, and I do believe that this is one out of only 2 episodes in all of Star Trek that managed to pull this off perfectly. So some episodes like Bride of Chaotica can be really funny, but at the expense of plot, where the plot in that episode was so full of holes it was ridiculous, and it was beyond obvious that many things were twisted to serve the comedy, where you really had to suspend disbelief a lot. Or episodes like Trial and Tribulations, where the plot was dull and uninteresting, and the spectacle and the comedy was the main point of that episode. Whereas this episode had a very solid and interesting plot, as it told a believable story of Voyager entering the space of aliens with cloaking and spying technology that tried to attack Voyager, and they tie this in with a great character story as the Doctor tries to improve himself by doing a very human thing that most people take for granted: daydreaming. And on top of that, this episode manages to have by far the funniest moments of the series. I absolutely love the opening sequence where the Doctor is singing an opera when Tuvok goes crazy with Pung Far, and the Doctor deals with it while singing. It was so hilarious. In fact, this is a little ditty I sing to myself quite often, as it's catchy and funny. Tuvok, I understand. You are a Vulcan man. You have just gone without for 7 years about. Paris, please find a way to load a hyperspray. I'll give you the sign. Just aim for his behind. It was absolutely brilliant. One of the most genius moments in the entire series. And what makes it funnier is, since this is the opening sequence, you don't realize that this is a fantasy at first until things start to get really out of control, especially when the singing while he's taking down Tuvok. And once it's revealed it's a fantasy, it makes so much sense. But like any brilliant comedy story, it's funny throughout. Some really funny moments throughout the entire episode, such as when the doctor's program goes haywire and Taurus, Janeway, Seven, and Kim are watching them. They see a fantasy where Taurus is hitting on the doctor, who rebuts her advances by saying, "Aren't you forgetting about someone?" And then he points to Paris, who grins and waves like an idiot, which was absolutely hilarious and of course fits perfectly with the doctor's view on Paris, who's always the butt of his jokes. And as any great comedy story will do, it saves its funniest moments till the end of the episode and sends it off with a hilarious conclusion, which is what this episode totally does when the doctor has to take command and is really awkward as he tries to relay what Janeway is saying while talking to the aliens and messes up, and it's absolutely hilarious. Definitely, one of the most funniest scenes in the entire series. But as I said, more than being funny, this episode has a very solid plot. As the episode introduced a really interesting and well-developed alien race who are actually never named in the series. However, since they make reference to the hierarchy all the time, they're commonly referred to as the hierarchy aliens. These aliens were absolutely perfect for this episode, as they were the perfect blend of comedy and menacing. And frankly, I think they work far better than the Ferengi did in Next Generation, as being both comical and menacing, as you could totally buy their characters, and through the very brief scenes you got with them, you really understood a lot about their society structure. As one reviewer once said, these aliens can't even wipe their own asses without consulting the hierarchy, which is quite interesting. And of course, the hierarchy is never fully explained. It's just referenced to as they send and receive written messages from them that tell them what to do. However, the name would strongly suggest that it's some form of leadership. So it's an alien race that has a strict leadership that seems to control all aspects of their lives, and their society seems to be built on spying on everyone. So it sounds really Big Brother-ish, or brings up images of dystopian dictatorships. However, they managed to make them comical rather than dark, and that is a huge feat. In fact, these aliens were so interesting, they brought them back for several more episodes, despite the fact that it doesn't actually make sense, as they appear towards the end of season 7, when Voyager, which is traveling back to Earth as fast as they can, would have moved far, far beyond their space. But we don't care, because we're just grateful to see these aliens again, as they are one of the most interesting aliens that this show has ever introduced. And on top of that, we get a great character story with the Doctor that is executed so well. As at first, Janeway dismisses his insisting that he is giving more power as unreasonable, but through watching his daydreams, which others like Taurus, 7 of 9, and Kim find offensive and make them think less of him, she actually sees how important helping the crew is to him, which leads her to giving him a chance, and he does prove himself, so she rewards him with what he wants, and that was a very satisfying, dare I say, touching ending. The one nitpick I have about this episode, though, is why are the hierarchy aliens scared off because the Doctor threatens to use the photonic cannon? They were already aware of the photonic cannon from, the spying on him. So what was their plan on dealing with this? They know it existed, so they should have realized that this was an option. Or did they just simply forget about it, or were hoping that they would forget about it? Seems like piss poor planning to me. So that was the one thing in this episode that felt like plot convenience, but it's a very small complaint, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter, especially considering how many things this episode got right. So my rating for Tinker, Tenor, Doctor, Spy out of 10 is a 9 excellent. Not one of the best episodes of the show, but a really solid one nonetheless. Certainly one of the best comedy episodes in all of the Star Trek universe, as it manages to tell a suspenseful story, a great character story, all the while being funny as hell. So definitely a huge accomplishment. So that's it for my review of Tinker, Tenor, Doctor, Spy. If there's an episode from any of the 5 Star Trek series you'd like me to review, just leave a comment below with the episode you'd like me to review. But please, 1 episode request per person, and be advised that I'm really backed up with requests at the moment, so it will be at least 3 months before I can get to your requests. And also be sure to check out my channel for many more Star Trek videos, as well as other videos on shows like Game of Thrones, Mr. Robot, Dark Matter, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.